ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदाङ्कितं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण श्रीललिता विशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुण सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिनि। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणि निर्विशेषाय शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणि। जय हो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण। So welcome you all to the online Bhagavad Gita level 2 classes from ISKCON Mangalore. So last week we started ninth chapter. We covered some portion of it. So we'll cover the next half of it. Yeah. So we did until 12 shlokas of ninth chapter. Yeah. So, and then those are very important shlokas which we went through in. So anyone wants to actually do a quick recap what we actually discussed in the last chapter? So yeah, anyone can start and then run through so whatever they remember, right? Does anyone remember what is the favorable condition, right? So the first verses were what? So who can actually get this message? Yeah. So the Lord's message, right? The wisdom and all. Say what kind of persons or living beings can know this knowledge? Even in the first verse, there was a word also, right? The English word is non-envious. Yeah, so only non-envious people can actually hear the message of the Lord. Yeah, and then we discussed about the faithless. And so at least you should remember this. What was confidential, more confidential, and most confidential, right? Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. So what is that Guhyam here? So confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. Does anyone remember? Anyone? At least out of these three. Okay, I see some hand. Okay. Keka Mataji, Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Mataji.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी। कॉन्फिडेंशियल है जो कृष्णा इज द ओनली सुप्रीम लॉर्ड एंड no one is greater than him, and he is the all controller.
No, Mataji. Confidential, more confidential, and most. तो कॉन्फिडेंशियल क्या था आपको याद है क्या? आप हिंदी में बताना चाहते हैं तो बता सकते हैं। So the Mataji, confidential is in chapter 2 and 3, right? And more confidential is 7 and 8. And most confidential is 9. I gave you all the answers now. Okay. So, okay, anyhow, I'll do a quick recap. I think most of them are not remembering these things, but yes, these are required. Okay. So, confidential is nothing but we are not the body. Yeah? We are spiritual. That's confidential. Yeah. And then more confidential is, as Mataji said, right? Enlightenment about Krishna's consciousness, right? And his energies and all. So that is more confidential, Mataji. And most confidential is the unalloyed devotion, Ananya Bhakti, which we are dealing in, yeah, the chapter 9. Okay, so yeah, we went through this all things, and then we even went through the faiths, right? So different kinds of faiths, and then we saw that Krishna is all pervading, yeah. So and then the whole cosmic uh, manifestation is done by him and is maintained by him. Yeah. So in 9.10 he says that Mayadhyakshena Prakriti. Yeah. So according to his direction, all the planets and everything is moving. Yeah. So and then we saw that how fools deride. Yeah. So in 9.11 and 9.12. Yeah. So now we'll go through 9.13. So here the Lord talks about the Mahatmas. Yeah. So now, so we saw what happens to the fools, right? So the fools get into the entanglements, they don't believe in Krishna, and what happens is they continue in the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So now we'll see what happens on the flip side to the Mahatmas. Yeah. So Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritah bhajante ananya manaso Gnatva buddhatim avyayam. So here, so the Lord says that, O son of Partha, those who are not deluded, yeah, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Mahatma also we saw in chapter 2 also, right? And then some portion was discussed in fourth also, right? So wherein they are completely in trance, yeah, say like they are always engaged in Krishna service, right, 24 bar 7, yeah. And so all the time they are thinking of the Lord and how to serve it, right? So either they meditate, they chant, yeah, or they do some service, they do kirtans, anything, right? So in the Navavida Bhakti, right, so they are engaged in one thing or the other, yeah. So and then they get the guidance from the spiritual master, so spiritual nature. So that is Devi Prakriti. Yeah? And then they do not divert, right? So they don't get bogged up with the mundane stuff, right? And then they are basically less connected to the material um, engagements or the material aspects, and then they are more interested in the spiritual stuff. Yeah. And they are basically attracted to the two-handed form. So the pure devotees, right? So they're not interested in the four-handed form, yeah, the Sham Sundara form. Okay, so they only like the two-handed form Krishna. So the Krishna in Vrindavan, right? So the pure unalloyed devotees always wants to engage Krishna with the two-handed form, so who's in Vrindavan with the flute. Yeah. Say they want Krishna at home, not in office. Yeah. So basically, Krishna at office is Vishnu. Yeah. So, but they want Krishna at home. Yeah. So they always want to do so even for us, right? So office is something different, and home is something different, right? So in the office we may have our different roles, but when we come home, right, so we don't carry on those roles on our shoulder, right? So it's a different role which we play here. uh. So, and the next shloka also, Krishna will be explaining. So what do they do? Yeah, so they actually engage. Yeah. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrata namasyantascha mam bhaktyam Nitya upasate. So that's whatever we discussed, right? Satatam kirtayanto. So they always try to glorify the Lord. So wherever they get a chance, right? So they always chant the glories, yeah. So, and they bow down, yeah. So they bow down and mam bhaktya. So in the bhaktya, right? Nitya yukta upasate. So it's always, yeah. So here if you look in, right, so it gives more clarity, so you'll be able to understand some of the pictures, right? So satatam kirtayantam is always chanting, yeah. So, and they're with dridhavrita, with determination, yeah. And namasyanta is nothing but offering obeisances, yeah, in devotion and engaged. So nitya, so not say like occasionally, yeah. So that is the difference, yeah, so which we have in, right. So usually if there are any festives, right, what do we do? Usually there is some idol or something which we worship for 7 days, 3 days, or 11 days, yeah, depending upon the time and circumstances, and then the say the worship which you are doing in, right, and later on, so we actually take that idol and immerse in water, right. So and then people forget after that, yeah, again they remember again when that festive comes in, right. So that's not the way we should do, yeah. For us everything is set, so every day we do all these things, right. So chanting, kirtan, lectures, yeah, and then worship, everything is already there, yeah. So and then this should be done nityam, yeah. So even in Bhagavatam there is a sloka, right? Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, yeah. So every day we'll have to read it. So it's not that it's only on a festive we do it and then we forget it, yeah. So it is not a temporary ladder which we climb and then we actually, once we have reached the floor, we will not use the ladder anymore, yeah. So that's not the case. So we'll have to actually do it nitya, yeah. So this is what the Mahatmas doing. Yeah? So that's about the Mahatmas. There were two stanzas which, or the two purports which we went through, in, right? So now uh, the Gyanis, right? Now Krishna talks about the Gyanis. Yeah. So in this verse, if you see, right, it is Ekatvena, yeah, Paraktvena, and Vishwa Mukham. So these are the three categories which he'll introduce now to Arjuna. Okay. So the three kinds of worshippers. Yeah? So who are Gyanis? So they indirectly worship the Lord. Yeah. So they don't know whom they are worshipping actually. Okay. So the first category is Ekatvena, right? So wherein they worship themselves as the Lord. Yeah. And the second one is these are the moodas, yeah, so which comes in we have touch based in 9.11 and 12, yeah. And then uh, prataktvena is nothing but the worship of devatas, yeah, the demigod worship, yeah, different forms which we worship in, right. So wherein we go for for different gods, we go for different purposes. Yeah. And Vishwatomukham. So this is the universal form. So those who worship the universal form, yeah. So who consider the universe, right? Say like the hills, the plants, the trees, right? Everything they worship. Yeah. So that's better actually. So among these three, right? So the Vishwatomukham, so at least he is accepting, he is able to see Krishna in everything. Yeah. So these three categories are after the four categories which is spoken in chapter 7. So four Sukritinas we spoke in chapter 4, right? So does anyone remember those four? So in chapter 7, we read four categories of people who actually approach the Lord. Yeah. So there are four good quality people who go, right? So on a good side, and there are four who are on a bad side, right? So good side, does anyone remember?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, bro.
Prabhuji, was it Artharthi, Jigyasu, and Gyanis?
Yeah.
Four categories?
So Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu. So those are the four categories of people who actually go to the Lord, right? So among them, Gyanis were the best, right? And then these categories which we are talking, right? So they are below that, okay? So these three categories which Krishna is actually telling us here, right? So these three categories are below them. Yeah? So if those are four, right? And then these are like 5, 6, and 7. Okay. And so now the verses from 9.16 to 9.19, right? So these three verses will be describing about the Vishwatomukham. Yeah. And then the other verses from 20 to 25, that is Prataktvena. So which is nothing but the demigod worships, yeah, or the Devata worships. Okay. So here he touch bases this, yeah. So that is what he says here. And Krishna is the supreme object, worshippers of the universal form. He gives in from 16 to 19. Okay. So here 16 is nothing but it is I who am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the offering to the ancestors. So whatever they are doing in, right? So it is indirectly Krishna. He says that the herb, the butter, the ghee, and the fire, whatever offerings are being given, right? So it's all Krishna. Okay. So this is about 9.16. 9.717, he says that I am the father of the universe, the mother, the supporter, the grandsire, and I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. So basically, the Lord is saying that He is everything. Yeah. I am also in the Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Yajur Veda. So he is Vedesha Sarvar, Aham Vedya, right? So all these things, so people don't know, and then they read in. But the end of the Vedas is to know that Lord Krishna. So the devotional service to Lord Krishna is the end ultimate. Yeah. After reading these all things, so we should reach, and then we shouldn't actually get um, say bogged up with these Vedas, and then so there are a lot of rituals, right? So and then the ultimate thing is to actually do devotional service to the Lord. Rather, if we are actually interested in a particular section of Vedas, and then say if we are lingering there, right? So then we are lost. Yeah. So Krishna says Krishna has all the relationships. Yeah. In material existence, we create different relationship with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. So whatever persons we deal in, right? So they are all spirit souls, right? And then, so they are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy, right? Under creation of Prakriti. And some of them appear as our father, mother, grandfather. So he is giving the explanation of how he is our father and mother. Yeah? So because all the living entities are the fragmental part of the Lord, right? It's the marginal energy. So that is how he's covering here. And then he says Dhata implies creator or supporter. Yeah. And then here's the symbol, and then this is what we spoke in, right? And then he says all the Vedas, because Krishna is the ultimate thing, right? We saw, and then we'll see in this chapter 15 also that he'll say. And here, right, he says he is the grandsire. Yeah. So if we actually, what grandsire means is, for us, right, if we take the relationship, right? So if we actually think of our grandfather and then grandfather's father, and then if you go in that relationship, right, father, grandfather, and then uh, their grandfathers, and then if you go in that, right, ultimately it'll end at Brahma, right? So he is the grandfather. So Brahma is known as the grandfather of the whole universe. Yeah. And then Krishna is the father of Brahma. Okay. So he is the great grandfather. Yeah. So in that way. And then he says that I am the goal of the sustainer, the master, the witness. Yeah. So witness in the sense, so he is acting as Paramatma, right? And then most dear friend, I am the creation and annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. Yeah. And then he says, further says that he is the one who controls the heat, rain, and drought. Yeah. And then I am the that personified, both being and non-being are in me. So if at all there is no control, right? So now every devata, right, he has been empowered, right? And then say if there is no control, so there should be some controller, right? So that is what Lord says, that he is the one who actually controls them. Yeah. And then, so the next verse, he says that those who study the Vedas drink the Soma juice. Yeah? So what happens? Yeah? So for this, until then, here we saw about the universal form, right? And then here on, what happens for the Praktvena? So wherein, say, the demigod worship or the Devata worship, right? What happens? Yeah? So we did read these verses in 8th chapter also, right? Abrahma Bhuna Loka. So wherein whatever pious things we do in, right? So the they go to an higher planet, right? So following up the rituals, right? So they go to an higher planet like Indra, Chandra, and then say where they drink and make merry, yeah? So for a longer time, and then once their credits are done, right? So they actually come down. So those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planet, worship me indirectly, take birth of on the planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. Yeah. So this is about Indraloka. Yeah. So what happens is there will be a lot of enjoyment which they'll do in, but again they are in the process of birth and death cycle. Yeah. So it is like a ferry wheel. Yeah. So you see this ferry wheel example has been given. Yeah. So in this ferry wheel, right? So when you go up, right, you will be enjoying. Yeah. The moment you will be coming down here, right? So you'll not enjoy anymore this fairy wheel here. Yeah. And again, once here it goes, you start enjoying. So it's like up and down. Yes, you're actually going in the cycle of birth and death as the fairy wheel is rotating. Yeah. So when they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasures, they return to the mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principle, they achieve only flickering happiness. So whatever happiness they had, right? So that's for temporary happiness. Yeah. So yeah, so the fairy wheel thing we discussed, right? So here actually this Vedas, so wherein in the purport, Prabhupada says Trivedis, yeah. So Trivedis are nothing but one who is well versed with the Vedas, yeah. So he gives those explanation, and so the next verse, right? So it's actually an icebreaker, yeah. So wherein the Lord actually gives the devotional information over there. So what happens if we do direct worship? Yeah. So and then this is a new verse which you will learn. Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, so we'll finish this. So results of demigod worship is nothing but karma kanda. Yeah. So demigod worships. So directly and indirectly, I think most of these things are covered in our previous chapters. Yeah. So what happens? So we actually worship different devtas and then get rain, sun, whatever. So depending upon our requirement, right? So, and say for getting we get the pious credits, and then say we do all sacrifices, yeah, to get swarga. So we perform yajnas basically to get into swarga, yeah. And so when the credits are enough, right? So they go to the planets of demigods, and then they enjoy a lot of pleasure there. So, path of demigod worship is purified of sinful reactions. They take birth on the pious heavenly planets of Indra. Yeah, so where they enjoy godly delights. Okay, and then they come back. So this is 9.22. Yeah, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana pariyupasate tesham nityabhi yuktanam yogashamam vahamyaham. So those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Yeah, this is an important shloka. Yeah? So wherein Krishna says that those ananyas, so those who worship with me, right, exclusively. So like fixed minded. So he says that he'll actually preserve them. Yeah. So yoga and Shema. So he says that yoga and Shema, he'll take care of them. Yeah. So the Ananya Bhaktas, right? So their only desire is to associate with the God. Yeah. So and then they can't actually think of anything else. Yeah. So they'll always their mind is always filled for the thoughts related to the Lord only. Yeah. So in that case, right, so the Lord says that for all those people, right, He actually takes care of them. So yoga is nothing but the unalloyed devotions, right? So which the Lord, which the devotee does in, right? So the Krishna, so wherein he connects with the Lord, yeah. So that's yoga, and Shema is nothing but the protection which the Lord gives in. So He takes care. Okay, so it is something similar as the parents take care of the child, yeah? But the thing is we should have full dependency on him. Yeah. So like, for example, so when we are very small, right? So like in months, right? So the baby is fully dependent on the mother, right? Because so the mother takes care of the child, right? So if it is winter, then the child doesn't ask for a sweater. Yeah, the mother knows him, and then because she is actually completely involved, yeah, to take care of the child. So and then the child is fully dependent on the mother. Yeah, so so if we have similar kind of dependency, right? So where we are dependent on the Lord for everything, yeah. So and the Lord takes care of it, yeah. So the only thing is we'll have to ask, yeah. So if the child is hungry, he needs to cry so that the mother knows and feeds him, yeah. So in that way, if we do in right, so the Lord actually takes care of them. So one of the examples which we can think of is of Rigari, yeah. Rigari we can actually quote here, yeah. And even Sudama Brahmana, right? So wherein he took handful of chipped rice and then he didn't ask anything for the Lord, yeah. But the Lord gave him. And Rigari story, hope you all know, right? So if not, then I'll just give you a small synopsis. So Mrigari was a hunter, okay. So he was a hunter who was hunting the animals for his, you can say for his livelihood or whatever it is. But he had one thing wherein he used to kill the animals half. Yeah. So he used to kill the animals half, and so that was his day in and day out job. Yeah. So once Narad Muni was passing by, and then he actually saw this half killing, and then he asked Mrigari to stop all those things. uh. Then he said that is not good, and then Narad Muni said that you actually start meditating on the Lord and then chant, and then that will purify your heart. And then Mrigari asked, so who will take care of my family and my daily food and all, right? So you're saying me to leave this occupation, but what will happen for my day-to-day stuff, right? So then the Lord or Narad Muni says that, so I'll take care of it. Okay. And then Simragari actually does meditation, and then with that, right, people came to see him. A hunter converted to a meditator of the Lord, right? So to see that change, right? So whosoever were coming in, right, to see him, they used to bring something or the other, like food items or vegetables, fruits, and all. So he never had a shortfall of it. So the Lord said that I'll take care and then I'll send it. Yeah. So that is what, but we should be completely surrendered and dependent. Yeah. As I said, child and mother example. And then the best examples, anyhow, we have about Prahalad Maharaj, right? So that's always there. And then Draupadi, Gajendra. Yeah. This is what Yoga Shemam, yeah, Vahamyam. So that's, and whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. So the Lord says that He is the proprietor, right, of everything. So it is like we are not watering. So those who are actually worshipping the devatas, right? So they are not actually watering the root. Rather, they are going and watering the branches and other stuff, right? So the Lord says that which is not correct. Avidhi purvakam. Yeah, so this is not correct. So it is offered without true understanding. So they're not understanding the actual purpose, and then they're doing it. Okay. So that is about avidhi purvakam. Yeah. So actually here he means that better worship the Supreme Lord. Yeah. And then here in the purport also, right? The purport Prabhupada writes in that so it is like say if we consider Krishna as the head of the state, and then these are like directors and others, right? Other devatas, we are actually bribing. Yeah. So rather, we should actually have a direct connection. Yeah. That's there. Yeah. Demigod worship without knowledge of Krishna's supremacy is called avidhi purvakam. Yeah. Okay. It is there in the slide itself. It is a sign of less intelligence because such worship is offered to me only, but indirectly. So whatever, even though we do it, it is an indirect way. Rather, we should do it in a direct way, is what Krishna says. Feeding different parts of the body and not the stomach. Yeah. So that doesn't help. Yeah. Not to follow the laws of the government and offering bribes to the officers. Yeah. This is what discovered here. Yeah. So what happens is nothing but again we go to the Indra Chandra Loka, and then if we worship them, right, so we are not going out of the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. But our end goal is to get out of this cycle. Yeah. And then henceforth, right, so the next verses on, right, he says that he is the Yajna Purusha, right? So we know even in fifth chapter also we know Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, right? So he is actually Bhokta. So I am the enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. So and then that is my true nature. So whatever we do, so all yajnas are related to him. Yeah. So this was the three types of categories which we spoke in, right? So that's covered here. And the next, okay, so there is one more verse. Huh? Okay. So what happens, right? If we worship different um, categories, right? So, and then what happens to them is being discussed here. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitran yanti pitravarta, bhutani yanti bhujeja, yanti mad yajno apimam. So what happens is yanti deva vrata devan. So whichever devata you worship, right, you'll go to that loka, like Mahesh loka or say Indra loka, Chandra loka. Yeah. So and there are few who actually offer to their forefathers, Pitran. Yeah, she will go to that planet. And then there are few who actually worship the black magic and all, right? So spirits, ghosts, so they'll go to their planets. Okay. So whatever, whomsoever we worship, right? So at the end, so we'll be going to that planet. So the destination would be that. For us, the best thing is if to actually worship the Lord and go back to the Godhead. Yeah. So those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Yeah. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors' planets, and those who worship me will live with me. So he says, Apimam. Yeah. So whoever worships him, so they'll go to him. So should be our ultimatum. So not all those things. Yeah? So we should not be carried away with all those things. That's going nowhere. Yeah. And the next verses, right? So the glories of directly worshipping the Lord, right? So here the next verses, right? So it's all about glorification of the Lord directly. Yeah. So here, this is one of the famous slokas, right? So in ninth chapter, and then this very important sloka also. Yeah. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktya uparhitam asnami priyatatmanah. So here the Lord says, if you offer, if anyone, right? So if anyone offers him with pure love, right? So a little water, yeah, a fruit, yeah, and a flower, right? So he'll accept it. Okay. Krishna offers, if Krishna accepts, if you offer anything, yeah, but the underlining thing should be that it should be offered with love. Yeah. If you see, he has used twice bhaktya. Yeah. Without bhakti, even if you give this chappan bhog also, right, nothing will happen. Okay. So the Lord is satisfied if you give him these things, but it should be done with proper bhakti. Yeah. And the other thing is he's not looking for these all things. Yeah. So it's like uh, he doesn't have any requirement for these offerings, but out of love, right? So out of the love from the devotees, right? He accepts them. Yeah. So that is the thing which we'll have to do in. So this actually anyone can do it, right? So a poor farmer or whosoever it is, right? So everyone can do this, right? A flower, a fruit, yeah. And then this is what is prescribed, yeah. So the Lord is saying that he needs only flower, fruit, and water. Yeah, he doesn't need anything else. Okay. So if indirectly he's not asking for any meat, egg, fish, and all those things. Yes, he's saying that only water and flowers and fruits. Yeah. And the other thing is, it should be with pure love. Yeah. So with pure bhakti. Okay. And this is how we should also offer. Yeah. So the best thing is, we offer whatever we have, right? To the Lord, and then we actually eat it. Yeah. So anything, this is called prasadam, right? So anything we offer to the Lord, and then we take it, right? Then that food, whichever is cooked, right? So even when you cook the food for the Lord, right? So thinking for the Lord and all those things, and then when you offer it to the Lord, and then you have it, right? So that becomes, say, he has given us the sanctioned food, right? The sanctioned food is what? Vegetables and grains, yeah. So and milk, these things are sanctioned by the Lord. Yeah. With those we can prepare the prasadam and then offer it to the Lord and then eat it. So once we do that, right, that becomes sanctified. Yeah. So once we offer to the Lord, it becomes sanctified. Yeah. So if we eat that food, right, so which is offered to the Lord, right, so it cleanses our mind. Yeah. So it has so many benefits which we get in. Yeah. So it's like sanctified, right? So it's like it is immunized. Yeah. The food once we offer to the Lord and then we eat it, right? So if at all that's not possible, right? So at least so in our day-to-day vidis which we're doing, right? So, or whatever worship we're doing, right? At least we should actually offer a fruit, yeah, a fruit and water and flowers. I think that much everyone can do, right? So all of us should actually offer at home some fruit, yeah, and a little water, yeah, and same tumblers, either it is made of brass or copper, silver, whatever it is, right? So we should offer with those, and then so we should add tulsi leaves, yeah. So everywhere, right? So whenever we do any bhoga to the Lord, whenever we offer anything, right, to the Lord, so we should have tulsi leaves added to it, yeah. So even if we are offering water, so then we should have a tulsi leaf, or if we are offering fruits, we should have tulsi leaf on it. Even the bhoga which we have in it, and then there are bhoga mantras also, so which you can learn afterwards. But to start with, right? So let's offer something to the Lord daily. Yeah, so fruits and then flowers, water that we can do, right? And then do whichever way, vidhi, whichever thing you know in that. So at least start with that, and then gradually you can make changes to it. Yeah. And then even see, the best practice would be that if you water tulsi also, right? Because so if you at home, if you have tulsi, say early in the morning, so you can do a arti if possible. If not, then at least pour water, yeah, and then touch tulsi, circumambulate. These things we can start slowly. Yeah. So this topic came, so I touched in, but hope you might be doing in. But yeah, and then you can even tune into our YouTube channel, right? So the Mangal Harti time, right? So if you see in right, all these things happen actually. So Tulsi Aarti and all, so you can actually visualize there. Uh, but, so the next sloka, right? Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat juhushu dadashi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushvamat arpanam. So he says that whatever you do, whatever you eat, right? So whatever offer or give away and austerities you perform, right? O son of Kunti, do as an offering to me. Yeah. So that's what we spoke in, right? So we covered in, right? So if you want to eat, say eat only prasadam. Yeah. So and then if you want to give any charity, so you utilize for so Krishna conscious things, right? Yeah. And then if you want to do any austerity, so you can do by chanting or anything. So and religious duties and all those things. And whatever we do, right? So do it for Krishna. Yeah? And then what will happen is the result of it is we'll get liberation from these all bondage. Yeah. Yeah. Nishkama Karma Yoga, this we covered in our previous chapters, right? Do as an offering to me, right? So whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, right? Following Krishna as an following acts as an offering to Krishna. So whatever we do, we should actually offer to Krishna and have it, right? In all the ways. Yeah. In this way, you will be freed from the bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. So whatever the results are, that's you'll be freed up. Yeah. If we follow that process which we spoke in, right? With your mind fixed on me, in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. The Lord says that how many times He says that if you follow this path, the path is clear, you'll come to me. Yeah. So, and then the Lord says that He's not envy. Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Yeah. So he's not having any envy to anyone. Yeah. So he's equal. So he's like the rainfall, yeah. So which falls on all the places. It falls on the terrain, it falls on the land, it falls on the sea. Yeah. It is depending on where it is falling and then how it is being utilized. Yeah. So, but whoever renders services unto me in devotion as a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So this is nothing but he actually reciprocates. Yeah. And even in 9.26, right? Say there was another example which I thought of giving. So that is about the Pratishtanpur Brahmana, right? So wherein he was a poor Brahmana, okay, and then but very pious Brahmana, and then he was very ritualistic, and then he was following all the required stuff, right? But he was very poor, so he used to attend all the classes or the Vedas and all, right? So he used to listen to all the senior devotees and all. So it happened that in one of those congregations, right? So some sannyasi or someone spoke saying that if you don't have enough money or anything, right? Even in that case, right, you can actually give your offerings by meditating. So like thinking of it and in the mind. So he was very poor, right? So he couldn't afford anything. So, and then he always had an uh, interest saying that he should actually opulently do all these services. Okay. But he never had that money so that he can do all the offerings to the Lord opulently. Okay. So, but the moment he heard from the Vaishnava saying that if we meditate on the Lord also, right? So, if our offerings, if we can give it through meditation also, Lord offers. So, he used to religiously follow that after that. So, he used to take dip in Godavari and then sit on the beds of Godavari, and then he used to think in his mind for all those, right? So clean right from cleaning the temple, doing aarti, and all those stuff, right? So whatever we do in the temple, right? So he was all meditating, and then okay, so he was thinking that this is an offering, and then he used to bow down. Everything he used to do there only. So it went on for few years. Okay. So one day he thought that he'll serve the Lord with an hot sweet rice. So there was a pot which was with hot sweet rice, right? And then he thought that it is very hot, and then before he offers to the Lord, right, he wanted to test it whether the sweet rice is little bit cool, which he can actually serve to the Lord. So he dipped his finger, and then his finger in his meditation, he dipped that his finger into the sweet rice, and then his finger got burned. Yeah. So we feel that whatever we actually offer, right, the Lord doesn't say look at it, or so the Lord doesn't accept. So this story reveals us that so the Lord was accepting all his offering as a Paramatma, yeah, saying from his heart. So that's the reason we should not feel that okay, so my offering will Lord accept it. So the Lord will accept our offerings provided we do it in pure bhakti. Yeah. So, and then if at all, while doing this bhakti, right, if at all we follow, if we fall down, say there is some abominable thing which happens, right? So, in the course of doing this devotional service, right? So, and then the Lord says that He excuses him. Yeah. Even if one commits the most abominable action, uh, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. Say in the course of doing this, right? Say, if we all have read the path of self-realization, right? So in there, so there is a letter which I think it was in the US only, so wherein say, one of the lady writes to Prabhupada saying that basically at that time, right, so there were few devotees who were trying to sell books, and then they were pushing hard her to buy that book. They maybe could be back to God and magazine or something. So they were asking her to buy in, and so they were doing their service, yeah, and she basically the lady got hurt, and then she wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying that two of your disciples actually are pushing me to buy books, and then which is not fair. And then she said that she felt bad. So to which Prabhupada replied saying that so they have actually given their lives, yeah. So they have committed to spend their whole life in devotional service. They have given up their jobs and everything, and then they have come to Krishna consciousness. And as this material world is dukkhalayam ashashvitam, right? So at that point in time, so they were actually trying to actually sell books, say, which you might have felt bad, yeah, say, wherein say them they might have actually got into some push to you. So he said that you should, so that thing, right? So say anywhere the devotees were trying to actually sell books, right? So they were trying to do the devotional service, but yeah, I think at that instant, right? So might be they have pushed a little bit more to her, saying that you should buy this book, or they might have insisted a little bit forcefully. So, which is actually this Maya, so at times acts on us, so wherein say they have done it, but that doesn't mean that say they have done a crime, yeah, and then say it is something which is not acceptable, yeah. So all those things, the Lord actually takes care of it, and then He says that it's not an big issue, say wherein say we actually boycott those devotees. It's not that the lady complained and then say we should actually we should not give them any book distribution service from the next day onwards, yeah. So in the course of doing his duty, right, so we may be at times harsh unknowingly, right, so that is okay, yeah. And then the Lord says that he becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, because so though they have done that, right, still their consciousness is not changed, right, so they are still doing the devotional service, and then they know that they want to spend their whole life in as a devotee to the Lord. So all those things are considered, yeah. So it's not an issue, is what the Lord says, yeah. So that is what is being described here also, yeah. So and then he says that mam hi partha, yeah. So O son of Partha, those who take shelter in me, though they are of lower birth, yeah, or Shudras and whatever it is, right? So the Lord says that whoever has taken his ashritaya, right? So though they are of low born, yeah, here basically the Lord is saying that say to be a devotee, right, and to do a devotional service to the Lord, right? So the Lord doesn't see the caste, creed, color, nothing. Yeah? The only ingredient which you should have is bhakti. Yeah, if you have that, say, say the Lord doesn't look at the criteria, so whether you are a Brahmana, Shudra, dog eater, man, woman. It's not. He doesn't look at that level. So that level is for us only. So we are actually materially differentiating things as man, woman, rich, poor, and all those things, right? That's all material. Yeah. In the spiritual world, there is no difference. It's all spirit souls. Yeah. And then whosoever actually does the service, right, or devotional service, the Lord accepts him. Yeah. And then ISKCON is best example, right? So if you see, so it is spread across the world, right? So anyone and everyone, so all are accepted as devotees, yeah, provided they have bhakti and then so they take up the devotional service. Yeah. And how much more this is so of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. This is next verse. Yeah. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. So whosoever is this in temporary world, right? Again, temporary miserable world. Yeah. So the Lord says here. So he uses a word called anityam ashukham lokam. Yeah. So this is in this verse he says anityam asukham lokam. Yeah. So this is a temporary place which is full of miseries. Yeah. So again, Dukhalayam Ashashritam is one certificate, and this is the other certificate which the Lord is giving. And here, right, if you look at Arjuna, right, so Arjuna was a Raja Rishi, right, so at that time. So for him also, the Lord suggests that he'll have to do devotional service. Yeah. So what to talk about us? Yeah. So this is the explanation which is given for 32 verse, right? There is no distinction in different class. Yes, as I said, there is no distinction between caste and creed. Nothing. Yeah. And most simple man taking shelter of a pure devotee can be purified. So, and then how do we get purified? That is by association. Yeah. So we should get proper association. Then only we get the purification done. Yeah. And one has to take complete shelter of Krishna. Then one can become greater than the Gyanis and Yogis. Pure devotees can enable people of lower classes to attain highest perfection. Okay. So that is being discussed here. And then, yeah, so this is 9.34. So wherein this is the last sloka. So wherein the Lord actually says that manmana bhava madhubhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro mam evashyasi yuktva atmanam mat pranaya parayana. So this manmana mad bhakto, right? So this is mentioned twice in Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So again in chapter 18, you'll get this manmana mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro mam evashyasi satyam priya asmin. Yeah. So that is the other one. So in chapter 18, you'll get this. So this thing will remain same. Okay. And then these two sentences or the words in the purpose will be changed. Okay. So again, the Lord stresses at the end. So how do we reach the Lord? Yeah, it is only possible by engaging manmana. So engaging our mind and always thinking of Him, Mad Bhakto. Yeah, Madayaji Mam Namaskaro. So we'll have to worship Him and then we'll have to pay obeisances Him and being completely absorbed in Him. So Mam Evashyasi Yuktavevam Atmanam Mat Parayana. So he says that surely you'll come to me if you're completely absorbed in the Lord's devotional service, right? So that is nothing but the 9 devotional services, right? So if you follow any of those 9 devotional services, right? And then we have to engage the mind on the Lord. So always thinking of Him, engaging our mind, so becoming His devotee, and offering obeisances and worshipping Him, right? So if we do all these things, right? So we'll go back to the Godhead. So the God has given the formula. How do you reach him? Yeah. The formula is this. You should always think of him. You should always worship him. You should always pay obeisances. Yeah. If you are completely absorbed in him, then the path is set. So this is the way wherein we can actually go back to Godhead. So we should engage all our body, mind, our activities. Yeah. So it's called Dio, Vacha and all, right? So Manasa, everything should be actually engaged in the service of the Lord. Then we'll be transferred to the Lord. And so whatever devotional service we do, right, it should be done, or whatever day-to-day activities which we pick in, right, it should be done which is favorable to Krishna. Yeah. Say unfavorable things we should ignore. Yeah. Say like Prajalpa and all these, right? Say Grama Katha, all these things will not lead to us anywhere, right? So we should not speak unnecessary things, right? So what will you get if you speak about something which is not relevant? Yeah? Gossiping unnecessary things, right? So if you don't, you want to kill your time and then you start gossiping the world affairs, what happened in your neighborhood, what happened in the Saas Bahu serial and all those things, right? Nothing will come out of it. Yeah. So we should avoid all those things and then so rather discuss more about the Lord or say his pastimes, all those stories, those are fruitful, right? And do kirtans or do book distribution. If you're not getting anything, pick up a book and read. I think that's the best thing. Okay. And then cultivate knowledge. So that is the best thing which we have to do in, yeah. So and in that way we actually can connect to the Lord. Okay. So this is the ending of this chapter. Yeah. So basically, the Lord is giving the formula for us. Yeah. So how do we actually reach to Him at the end? Okay. And the other thing is we should not offend the Vaishnavas. Yeah. That is the biggest thing. Yeah. So we should not actually differentiate and offend the Vaishnavas who have given their life, right, for Krishna's service. So that is the biggest offense. Uh, Even though if you don't worship the Lord, it's okay, but don't offend anyone. Yeah. So with any of the either by words or anything. Yeah. So that's the thing. Basically, here we saw this chapter, right? So we saw what devotional service is the most confidential, right? Knowledge, Ananya Bhakta, and what else we saw. So, and then the different sacrifices, and then what happens to the worshippers, non-worshippers, different types of gyanis, what happens to the fools, yeah, and then what does Krishna accept, yeah, and then so Krishna is not impartial, yeah, and then anyone can take up Krishna consciousness. So most of the people have a doubt whether they can take Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so Krishna consciousness is open. So it doesn't look for any caste, creed, religion, nothing. So everyone is welcome to take this. And at the end, say he gives the formula as how do we go back to Godhead. Yeah. So this covers chapter 9. Hare Krishna. Anyone has any doubts, we'll cover for a couple of minutes, and if not, then we'll wind up. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay, Rajni Mataji has something. Yeah, Rajni Mataji, go ahead.
Prabhuji, it is not related to this chapter though. Like I've started reading Bhagavad Gita and I got one or two questions. I'm sorry, the other day I sent a message in a very wrong time. It was
That's
pretty
okay.
late, I guess.
No, that's okay, Mataji. Usually weekdays is a bit difficult, but that's okay. Yeah, yeah, good.
Yeah.
You,
So when I was reading Bhagavad Gita, everywhere it is mentioned as Srimati Radharani, but
yeah, man.
Radharani, as far as I know, is not was not married. And then I started digging it through, like trying to read more about Radharani in other books and all, like through other things. Then they said it is Abhimanyu's wife was
Yeah.
Radharani. So I was like more confused. Then I thought I can't ask you in that time, so I just waited for the class.
That's the shadow, actually. The shadow of Lord Krishna is nothing but Abhimanyu. So Radharani was actually married to Abhimanyu, which is nothing but the shadow of Krishna.
Okay.
So that's the material front. Okay. Think,
Mm-hmm.
so these things you can you can have this knowledge, but yeah, you don't go much deep into those things. Yeah. So yeah. Abhimanyu is there, and then even if you, I don't know if it is in Krishna book, right? So wherein Krishna actually plays pranks also. So wherein he actually gets the same feature of Abhimanyu, and then he says he goes to his mother, and then he says that, you see, Abhimanyu is coming. So the other person, right? He says that the other person is cheating and all those things. He plays pranks, but
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, what I understood was like was right. Like
Yeah,
Radharani was married, and it was to Abhimanyu.
yeah,
Okay, because then I read in Krishna book that Abhimanyu could not even touch
yeah,
Radharani's
yeah,
shadow as well.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, now what is this? I could not
That's
understand.
all. So see, even see Radha Rani's and Krishna's pastimes, right? So are very secret, Mataji, and then so none of the books, right? So it is being written, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then even say we can't understand even. So that's above our level. Yeah, so that's maybe somewhere if the acharyas have commented something, right, on them, then only we get some information to know. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
in, right, in majority of the cases, right, so that's I think that relation is say it is his internal potential relations, right? So majority of the things, if you go through also, right, many of the
Mm-hmm.
text shastras also, you'll not find much details about their relationships and all. So it will be more
Right.
of her devotion, and then along with the gopis, you'll get all those details.
Right. Okay, Prabhuji. Now that I'm I've started reading, there are like more and more new questions coming up. And what you said about that scientific thing, I did not understand still. You said about
See, actually, the scientists believe that the whole universe was created from matter.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is what Prabhupada mentioned, that that's a wrong theory. Okay,
Okay.
so the consciousness doesn't come by when two matters combine. So
Mm.
that is the thing which Prabhupada explains in that particular section. Okay,
Okay.
rather there is the cosmic thing is there, right? So wherein we have all these evidences in shastras, right? So every yuga and all those things, right? Even I think the scientists don't have a calculation of when the universe was created and all those things. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
so there was a research which was being done from our Bhagavatam, so wherein Bhagavatam had all those approximate years.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things, right? That's the reason Prabhupada is actually mission or vision was to create this TOVP, right? So wherein he wanted this cosmic science, right? All these things about the cosmology, right? As
Mm-hmm.
per spiritual thing, right? He wanted to develop that center. So that is what the temple of Vedic planetarium, which is coming in Mayapur, right? So it's a huge temple complex which is coming. I think if I recollected, some 1,300 crore or 3,000 crore project. I don't know. So it's a heavy project wherein it is coming in, where we can visualize all these things. So he wanted the scientific community to understand all these things. So he doesn't buy in the scientific thing, because science is something which was developed 500 years ago, right? So but
Right.
spiritual thing, they have everything documented some ages ago. So that's the difference, Mataji.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So tomorrow we'll not have the class. So next Saturday we'll meet once again with chapter 10. But but I'll leave it, if you all want to use this bridge to actually use as a bhakti say discussion about anything, right? Any topics or anything, if you want to do discuss among yourselves, you can do it. Yeah, so the bridge would be open. Okay, we'll wind up the class for today then. Vancha kalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.